Real-life stories narrated from the experiences of R2K, Unveiling the Family Secret. I woke up the next day, the events of the previous night still fresh in my mind. I couldn't shake off the unease that had settled deep within me. It was a unique experience, one that felt both surreal and disturbingly real. As much as I tried to convince myself it was nothing, the thoughts kept swirling in my head. I decided not to tell my family. I didn't want to worry them, especially since they had no idea what I had experienced. But as I sat alone with my thoughts, I realized that this wasn't just about one strange night. There had been so many instances over the years, things I had brushed off as a child, dismissed as my imagination, were chalked up to the quirks of living in an old house. Was it something supernatural? Or was I simply overthinking? My mind kept replaying all the odd occurrences from my childhood: snakes slithering through the garden, bats flitting inside the house. In our culture, people often say that seeing bats indoors is a bad omen, a sign that the house is haunted. Snakes, too, were said to be harbingers of evil, with old tales claiming that devils could take on the form of creatures to interact with humans. Was this house cursed? Was something wrong with it? The more I thought about it, the more I realized I couldn't keep this to myself. I needed answers, not just for me, but for my family. I didn't want them facing whatever it was that had disturbed me so deeply. Maybe, just maybe, they knew something or someone who could help. Later that day, I gathered my courage and decided to ask my dad if he had ever experienced anything supernatural in the house. I ensured my whole family was present. As I broached the subject, I could feel the tension in the room thickening. To my surprise, Dad didn't hesitate. He nodded slowly and said, "Yes, I've had several experiences." My heart skipped a beat. This was the last thing I expected to hear. He went on to explain that he never spoke about it because he didn't want to scare us. But now that I had brought it up, he felt it was time to share. My sister and mother looked at each other, then at me, and before I could say anything, they started talking too, each recounting their own eerie encounters. My sister mentioned waking up in the middle of the night to the sound of faint whispers, voices that seemed to be just outside the window, only to find nothing there. My mother spoke of hearing footsteps in the corridor late at night, footsteps that would stop just outside her door. Dad confirmed he had heard the same, but he had always convinced himself it was just an animal or the house settling. Everyone had heard those footsteps, those strange noises that I had always dismissed as a child. But now, it all seemed to connect, as if these individual pieces were part of a larger, more terrifying puzzle. Dad mentioned a few stories that had stuck with him, things he couldn't explain, things he had buried deep because acknowledging them would mean accepting that something was wrong, something deeply unsettling. My sister, too, had a story, one that she had kept to herself for years, thinking no one would believe her. And my mother, though skeptical by nature, admitted that there were times when she felt an unshakable presence in the house, something she couldn't explain away with logic. As they spoke, I felt a chill run down my spine. This wasn't just my imagination. There was something here, something that had been lurking in the shadows of our lives for years, unnoticed or perhaps deliberately ignored. I needed to know more. I needed to piece together what was happening in this house. And so, we decided to talk.